Right, hello, welcome back. I don't know if anyone can hear me, if this is working or whatnot. Um, but I'm pretty confident we're online. I see a few people might have tuned in already, staring at a blank screen. Fair play to you. So let's start then, shall we? Let's have a look at Bitcoin. And I'm sure we'll be coming back to Bitcoin quite a few times throughout the evening. I'll probably do this live stream for about an hour or so and see how we go, see how interesting it was. So yesterday I did a live stream and we were watching this pump up here, and we were waiting for it to touch this resistance level here. That resistance would have been anywhere between excuse me, the top of the Bollinger Band, the green 50 exponential, or the purple 50. So both both simple and exponential 50 moving average was both there, and also this big giant fat red resistance Ichimoku cloud, all of which conversion at this price action. So I left the video in a bit of a hurry actually, so I could close my longs before we got rejected, and that's basically what happened, which was pretty tasty. Hello there, Chris. Well played for joining me, and I assume that you guys are my Telegram group, so fair play to you for joining. So I don't know if you watched this anyway last night, lads, but I did a live stream and we were watching this pump, and we were waiting for the rejection, which is exactly what we got here. I thought there might be a bit of an extra burst, but there wasn't, and but we knew that we were going to get rejected here, so I closed my longs off anyway, and we did quite well out of it. I haven't gone short though, I should say. I've been stung a couple of times trying to go short in this area now, so I've decided not to play that anymore. The plan that I've got now is to essentially go long, but from which area? But that's just my trading strategies anyway. We won't go into details about that. We just want to work out what the hell's going on with this, don't we? We want to know if it's just a rejection, or if this is going to be continued down to this bottom area here, where we might probably see a breakdown again to these lower levels. But at the moment, at this very moment, it's probably about a 50-50. Because we have this conversion baseline cross, which is what I wanted to sort of talk about a few days ago, where I thought we were going to have a continuation. That's generally what this means, but on a daily it's not as relevant as it would be on a weekly, but we've got it on a daily anyway. This indicator has been quite misleading in the past, and I can show you where this tricked us before. We had a cross here, you see, after a big pump, and then obviously we didn't have continuation of that and we fell down. So it's just one little indicator that might not mean much. The fact is the chart's bearish, so if we break down from here, I wouldn't be surprised at all. If we pump again from here, I would still expect rejection from these levels, and if we burst through them, I would probably say that we're likely to be bullish from that point onwards. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you joined at the last minute there, Chris. Well, in the last few minutes of that live stream, I think you probably caught probably the most important part, which was Bitcoin's pumping and is due to be rejected from this level. So the last 30 seconds of that live stream were probably the most important. Just as I logged off, I said I was logging off to close my longs, which is what I did at this level here, closed them off. And not to sound like I'm blowing my own trumpet, but I pretty much closed at the top. But it's not rocket science. When we look at the chart here, we were at the top of a daily Bollinger Band. We're also hitting the green 50 and the purple 50 exponential moving average, and also the bottom of a resistance cloud. So if this area doesn't find resistance, I don't know what will. So it's a pretty safe bet that this is where we would be rejected from. So it's like I say, it's not me being a genius. It's just some real simple moving averages and tools. Really, it's a dead simple area to have closed, or if you had the balls, you could go short from it too. My buy price for XRP, well, it depends what your game plan is. My game plan for XRP is just to buy some at this low price and hold on to it, and then when the market does do something specific, or XRP looks like it's going to do something amazing, I'll put a leveraged position on just to accumulate some more. But it's not for any reason. I don't expect XRP to do anything better than any other coin. In fact, I expect it to be doing much less than most coins. I think it's pretty crap, to be honest with you. But at this low level, this price, it's definitely worth buying. Anything under 20 cents, I'd say XRP is worth buying, because into next year, I'd be surprised if we saw an XRP this low ever again. So that's just the way I see it. I could completely be wrong, but I just thought, it's cheap. It's likely to do well over a 2-year period, but not much better than anything else. My main sort of accumulation of any alt after Matic, and obviously we've sold Matic, you guys know that. Excuse me, I got a frog in my throat. Is Ethereum, and that's the one I've been collecting the most of. It's obviously there's a lot of better coins out there that do bigger moves, but it's got lots of liquidity in it, Ethereum, and I do think that it's at quite a low price. It's quite reasonable to be buying it here, and I think next year and into the next 2 years, I think we'll probably see a 10x on this one, so, or close to a 10x anyway. So that's my thoughts behind it anyway. So, but anyway, back onto Bitcoin. So what do I expect to see from here? Well, this rejection, like I say, I did expect to see it, and we got it, and it was at a lower level than this rejection. We didn't close a candle above our most recent high. We haven't closed a candle above our most recent high yet. So we need to see how these next few days play out. If they continue to be down days, then I think we'll probably have continuation down to at least the descending trend, which should be a support for us. But if it doesn't, if we do come down to these lower levels, and like I say, at the moment in time, as of today, that would be the bottom of the Bollinger Band too. So that should offer some support. That's 6,800. That's a pretty big ask for it to drop down that low. But we have to ask ourselves, is Bitcoin actually ready to reverse? Considering what I mentioned about this Ichimoku Cloud cross, when we do have a cross like this on a weekly, it's a good thing. On a daily, it can be misleading because we got a cross here after this pump. Where was it? It was here that took place. So we had a big pump, we had a cross, that's generally a bullish sign of continuation of the move up. We failed to get that because it was born out of a giant pump. A bounce, you could say. The first time we ever broke down beneath this 200, it was the 242 moving average we broke down beneath. And again, actually, we broke under, and it was yet another close under the 200 EMA. So that was the first time. That's never happened in a bull market with Bitcoin, breaking beneath this 242. So we broke down beneath it and we got a big pump out of it. And like I say, we came down to test this bottom, and I think people, even me, was considering buying it back down there, but I bottled it at the last minute because I do think it was likely to go lower. So I didn't, but a lot of people took the opportunity and it pumped big time. So this indicator, as bullish as I'd like to be on it, and as much as I'd like to see continuation, I have to say that this has probably been forged out of this pump here, and it might not be ready. So, on the weekly, when we get these crosses on the weekly, they're very accurate, they're very good. We had a cross here on the weekly to say that we were going to be continuing with a trend down. We had a cross at this level here, that's where it took place, so we can measure that from bottom to top. From top to bottom, that was a 72% continuation of the move down. And when we got across on the weekly, we were here at this price action. So to be generous, we'll measure it from the bottom all the way to the top, and that was a 170, more or less 169% move. So it's very accurate when it comes to telling us if there's a continuation of the move on a weekly. It's better for long-term trends. So here we go. We had another one here. This is where we had that cross. And where did we come down? We came down only by 32%. Now these two setups are different. This is a definite 100% parabolic top with a bear trend afterwards, a clear consolidation after. Well, it's not consolidation. It's a bear market for a year. So I would expect to see more consolidation or more downwards trend on this than I would on this, because technically this is meant to be a bull market. So 33% is where we've gone from bottom to top so far from that cross here. In fact, did I do that right? Let me see. So we crossed here. To be generous, well, we want to overstate this, don't we? So let's move from there to there. Nah, in fact, what was I doing? It was only a 26%. But the thing about this is not like a death cross where there's an expected amount of downwards movement after the fact. It's generally there to tell us that there's a very, very big possibility that we'll be moving down as a result of this, like a continuation of the move down. So we got those on the weekly, so it would still suggest that we're going to be moving down. And it's only when we get across to the up again that we would be looking at a continuation of the move up. And when we get that cross, it's going to be a pretty good one, because we're supposed to be in a bull market. So when we get that cross on the Itchy Cloud on a weekly, then it would be safe to say, we would have already been going up quite a lot by that point, but by the time we get that cross. But when we do get that cross, it would be a safe buying entry. Not saying it's going to be going up straight from that cross. Obviously, it's a volatile asset, but it's likely to do pretty well after that cross has taken place. Although the daily, as you can see, isn't quite as accurate as that. It does lie to us, and it has lied to us here. It could be lying to us here because, again, even though that doesn't look much, it's still a big move. This was a very big move. It was 42 almost, and this was a 15, 16, and so that's the way I view it. Is that I'd like to say it's going to have continuation, but it might not, because this, even though it's a daily chart, it's not a long enough time frame for it to predict an accurate reading. Excuse me. Anyway, I was just babbling on about that. Sorry about that. Lots of babble there. No, I've not picked up any one. No, I mean, I'm not the fundamentals person, so I don't really buy on fundamentals. It's not for me. So feel free to buy one if you want, but the chart, well, you can have a look at the chart if you like. The chart isn't exactly that of a bullish chart, to me anyway. Let's have a look. So it's up against Bitcoin, so that's doing well. So it's showing strength, definitely. I don't want to do that, do I? It's definitely showing strength, but it's not bullish in my view. Yeah, I mean, this is the way I see one, okay, and we've gone over this in the past, and you've heard me go talk about it in the past. So, just a brief overview is that any coin that is recently just put in a low for the first time, a new low like this, it doesn't mean it's not bullish. It's technically it's bearish. It's just made a new low recently. So that low was here. How many days ago was that? It was less than 2 weeks ago. It formed a brand new low. And there is a chance that Bitcoin is going to continue to move down. And if you've noticed, I don't know if you've noticed this, but since this pump, yeah, a lot of coins have pumped. But now that it's retracing, alts are suffering harder than Bitcoin. So every time Bitcoin pumps, altcoins pump with it. When it drops a little bit, altcoins drop harder. So with every little move up and then move back down again, Bitcoin still remains the strongest and alts suffer the hardest. So until Bitcoin has decided that it's not going to be bearish, then alts are going to continue to suffer. I brought this up as well. So this is our Bitcoin dominance chart. You can see the Bitcoin dominance is actually all basically back to a relatively decent point of 70, almost 71%. That shows you that alts basically are they're going to get wrecked. Basically, most alts are going to get wrecked. You can buy certain alts. The ones I've got up here, the ones I'm interested in, is Ethereum and Binance coin. XRP I've just brought up just for the fun of it. XRP isn't one of these coins which is going to do well at all at this moment in time. But Binance coin and Ethereum are probably going to be doing well. They're going to be like it'll be the equivalent of buying Bitcoin with a bit of leverage on it. But as you've noticed, when it pulls back harder. But these two have been okay. Most other alts are not okay at all. If you have a look at Matic, you can see that it's not okay at all. It's suffering quite hard. One, I believe, is going to suffer not as bad as Matic, but it's not going to do as well as those other guys. If you're buying it off the back of fundamentals, then I can't really account for that. So, but if we just look at one thing, which is the chart, what we're seeing a coin that's put in brand new lows 2 weeks ago. So that's bearish in itself. It's a brand new low just less than 2 weeks ago is likely to see another low. Statistically, it's likely to see another low. So we're talking statistical analysis. Is it what's most likely? Is this going to be the bottom? What's there to confirm that is the bottom? Nothing. That's the lowest price we've ever seen this coin at ever. So, and that's only happened less than 2 weeks ago, so it doesn't sound like something I would want to buy. We're way below the 200 EMA, which is downward sloping quite nastily. Again, all these other moving averages are all downward sloping quite nastily. We're beneath the itchy cloud. For what it's worth, it's not worth a great deal on an asset that's so young, so it's not really worth looking at. But we are, nevertheless. And again, we've had a cross on the itchy cloud, which again, I don't hold much weight to. We're beneath the 0 point, even though, yes, there is a little bullish divergence, but ever so slightly. The volume is tiny in comparison to other coins. So it's not a coin for me right now. But fundamentally, I don't know. It's not my bag, but it's not looking like it wants to do anything. As far as the chart is concerned, it looks like it's probably going to take another hit and possibly make a brand new low. But you know, all eyes are on Bitcoin. When we've got a Bitcoin that's 70% strong, then Bitcoin is the one to be looking at, to be honest with you. And that's why we focus so much on Bitcoin. It's because Bitcoin dictates the health of the market. And at the moment, it's quite indecisive. We've been playing around in this range. There's nods to the bulls and nods to the bears. So it's a moment, it's a 50-50, but it's not a time to be putting money into a low cap alt just in the hope that it will do well. That's just how I do it. You know, if you want to invest in stuff, that's your bag. Right, so what should we have a look at then? Excuse me. Do I hold Link? I did hold Link, but Link looks terrible at the moment. Again, with all other coins, we'll get Link up just for fun, shall we? And we'll see how bad it actually is. It's not good. Let's face it. It was good, but it's not good now. And I don't know what happened. I don't know. Like I say, I'm not a fundamental person, but judging by the state of this chart, it looks like something happened to it that I can't explain. So yeah, we fell off a cliff massively, and that really hurt it big time. And we've got an incoming death cross by the looks of things. If we don't pick our price up above, well, we've got to get above $2 really and we've got to get above there quite quickly to avoid this death cross. If the death cross takes place, Link will suffer. It will suffer quite bad. I would expect to see at least another 20% down from the price that we're at right now. If the death cross happens, it means it would happen underneath the level of the 200 exponential. So let's just measure it from there. We could be seeing Chainlink roughly around $1.25, $1.26. We could be looking at that price action, that level of a Chainlink in the event of a death cross. And if you see how steep this cross is, it's smashing through all these other exponential moving averages and the simples. It's just looking pretty bad. Big fat resistance cloud, heavily bearish. It's not a great coin to buy. Even buying it now at this low level, it's only low when you look at it of where it's been. It's not low. It's not a low level if you consider where it's likely to go. So it's one of those. It's another one of those. It's another one of those coins that has basically fallen out of the sky. Now, obviously, you know, we can look at this in retrospect and go, "Wow! Imagine if we'd bought it down here and sold it up there." Yeah, you can always say that about any chart. But what we cannot do is we can't go back in time. What we can do is look at what's likely to happen when we stare at this chart at the moment, and what's most likely to happen. Even if Bitcoin pumps a little bit and brings Chainlink with it, it's got to bring it above this level. And at the moment, it doesn't look like it's going to happen, because every time we've come close to this 200, we get rejected. The closest we came was this guy here, and you can see how much of a rejection that happened. And that was a big rejection. So I'm pretty confident in thinking that even though it's not happened yet, and I can't say anything is definitely going to happen, because anything could happen. But if it were to happen, we're looking at seeing a death cross on the 11th of January or thereabouts, and then we will see Chainlink fall out of the sky. So I'm not going to hold this one, I'm afraid. Not at all. We need to see it get above that 200 exponential first to avoid the death cross. But because the death cross looks like it wants to happen and it's coming in so fast, it probably will happen, which means that we're going to see a Chainlink at least around below $1.50. So expectations for Bitcoin this week. Well, that's the question, isn't it? That is the question. So a brief synopsis, a brief summary of what's gone on is that we've been underneath a descending trend since the summer. Every time we come close to it, we get rejected from it. Even when we broke way above it on this wick, we came back down to close beneath it. These were being sold off from people trying to continue that, and they couldn't, obviously, because the direction of the trend was stronger than the FOMO that tried to keep it up. But interestingly, most of the time we were supported above it until we broke down beneath it. So it was my theory that when we break above it differently, so not like this, when we broke above it and close above it in a more of an organic fashion, that we're likely to go bullish. So we did do that. We had this big bounce here, which is that's all it was. This was a bounce, but the bounce continued and gave us a nice big green candle there. So that was my first indication for me to think that Bitcoin might be going bullish. Even though this isn't the be-all and end-all, it's been a very useful trend line, but it doesn't mean that it can't come down again. You know, we can be forming a second trend line, but it's not yet, it's not yet been established. But what I can say is that that's a nod to the bulls, and that this could possibly have continuation. What we need to see to have continuation is we need to see a candle body close above this level, which is 7,500, which is what we've been trying to do, but we're getting significantly rejected. Getting rejected on the 34 EMA there and here, and that's a big rejection too. We had a little bit of a climb up here, but I thought we were going to, and like I say, if you watched my live stream yesterday, we got rejected from here. This is what I wanted to see. Well, I didn't want to see it, but this is what we knew was most likely going to happen. We get rejected from here. That is a rejection point of a few things, being Bollinger Band, 50 EMA and simple, plus this big, is the bottom of this big itchy cloud, which is a strong and big resistance level. Sorry, I can't get my words out. So we knew we were going to get rejected there. It was very likely. If we didn't get rejected there, we could easily continue all the way up to this level, which is just under 8,000, where the 200 EMA is. Now, because we're getting rejected and we've not yet made a higher than this level here, it could be a similar situation to what happened here. Even though this was a lot easier to work out, because when we closed underneath a descending trend and we were being supported above it, but it was continuing to go down, so it was a lot easier to say that yes, we're going to break down from here. This time it's not that easy, because we're holding at a certain level and we're still above this descending trend, but the rejections are pretty strong, so there is a chance that we will come back down, and if we do come back down, we'll be seeing these levels here of around 6,800 at least to start with. So it's a real sort of problem really for someone like me, because we've got bullish setup. You know, we've broken out of a trend, and usually when a trend like this that's been long standing is broken, it does mean something significant, but it hasn't yet had continuation, and because of that, then we haven't, obviously by continuation I mean we need to have a candle body close above 7,500. It's too early to say that it is actually bullish. The other thing I was talking about was this itchy cloud cross, the conversion over the baseline, but I don't think that is as relevant as it should be, because first of all it's on a daily chart, so it's a small time frame to be looking at it on, and also the last time we had a bullish cross on that was here after another big bounce, which basically lied to us, because if you were to be buying at this cross here, you'd be buying at that level here, and pretty much wouldn't get much continuation. It actually fell back down and came crashing back down. So that all could be happening here, because it was a similar thing that happened here, a big bounce, and this could be people trying to push it up, because it is doing something new, it's doing something different, but it doesn't really look very bullish to me at the moment. I think there is a good chance. Like I say, it's 50-50. I have to say it's 50-50, but there is a good chance now that we will come back down to test this descending trend at some point as a support, which means that that's bad, it's bearish, because it's a descending trend and it is bearish. So the bottom level, if it did it today, would be 6,800, but as the time continues, this resistance cloud is going to get steeper and knock us down further to around 7,000 around about the middle of January. So we'll have an area to play in between these levels here. So as low as that, 6,300 being our support, and our resistance being 7,000. That's if we can't make our minds up and break above into this cloud. This whole cloud is going to be resistance. It's not going to be easy to break through all of this. The whole thing is giant resistance cloud. It's like gravity, basically. It's like it's going to be harder for price action to move in and out of this area than it would, if it doesn't have it. Once it's broken out of it, it'll be fine, but because it doesn't, it's not broken out of it. it'll be harder. So I still think that we'll probably see, you know, a 7,000 or maybe even a low 6,000 Bitcoin is as likely as seeing a Bitcoin above 8,400. I can make a new triangle, yeah, but to me it's not going to be as relevant. One thing I can try and do actually is I could perhaps maybe try to do a fork, a pitchfork, but most of the time these don't work, so that wouldn't work. But when they do work, they clearly do work. They obviously do work. But at the moment, it's not had enough price action, and it's not had enough time to mature. So yeah, I mean, if you were to look at this, okay. So this would be I mean, like I say, it's not had enough time to mature. If you were to be going by this pitchfork, okay, what you could say is, yeah, the pitchfork works. It works in these 3 days. These 3 days it looked like it worked. So we had and obviously we started the bottom of the pitchfork here, where that rejection was. So yeah, that looked good. This one was dancing around in the middle. This one clearly looks like it was supported from the bottom of the pitchfork and rejected from the top of the pitchfork. And now we've broken beneath the pitchfork, which would suggest downwards trend from here on. You could add another pitchfork to it, but because it's broken out of here, it suggests that it's probably going to continue down, but that's only going off this pitchfork. Like I say, pitchforks it's not very useful, especially if you're just using it for a 3-day trend. That's not really the best way to use it. But if we did use this pitchfork, similar to the way you could make another triangle, for instance, or another pattern, I'd prefer to try and fit a pitchfork in, and the pitchfork, to me, if you wanted to use it, is telling us that the movement will be down. And if we do have a pump up above it, it might be rejected from the bottom of this pitchfork or the top of the pitchfork. Ideally, when you use a pitchfork, you want to see it breaking into the next level and into the next level, into the next level, and then coming back and using them as supports. So you can see it's only been 3 days and it's failed already. So even if this pitchfork is relevant, which I'm not saying it is or it isn't, I mean, it looks like it worked, but it only had 3 days to do it, so it's not really much. It's not really a good time frame to be doing it on. But if it does work, and if it is something to go by, then it suggests that it's going to keep going down. But it's only a 3-day pitchfork or a 4-day pitchfork, so let's not get too excited about that. I don't really generally like drawing channels or triangles or whatever. It's just that this one was so relevant for so long that it meant something to me, so I kept it in all this time. Most of the time I don't really draw pictures all over my charts. I simply choose to work off the basis of moving averages, Ichimoku clouds, Bollinger Bands, volume, and MACD. I try and keep it as simple as possible. Historical supports and resistances clearly play an important role, but you can blind yourself with too many indicators, and drawing sort of trend lines and specifically things like channels and wedges and things like that. They can be more distracting, I think, than the way I like to trade, which is basically nice and simple, moving averages, and historical supports and resistances. It's like the old phrase, isn't it? Keep it simple, stupid, and that's what I like to do. And it generally, most of the time, works out for me. Doesn't always, but the way to use obviously these is for a longer term time frame. So this is why I only really look at the daily chart, and a lot of alts I find it very difficult to chart them because they're not mature enough. Bitcoin is a relatively mature asset. It's 10 years of price history, so these indicators, these moving averages have had a relatively decent amount of time to mature, which makes them a bit more accurate than a lot of alts, which have been around for 2, 3, 4, or maybe if you're lucky 5 years or so. They're not. Most of them haven't been around for very long. The new ones, like Matic or whatever, it's kind of making it up as it goes along. There's very little to go by, but everybody has their own way of trading. But most people, and even most indicators are based off 3 things, which is volume, time, and previous price action. They're just variations of that. They all are based around that. I mean, the Itchy Cloud is basically exactly the same as moving averages. It's just a different setup. They're all the same. All indicators have nothing else to go by than those three things. So you can use as many or as little as you like. They all basically, roughly, get their data from those three things, those three elements. So there's no need to be using, 10 or 20 indicators or drawing pictures all over the place. Supports and resistances are the main things, and like I say, this is why I try and just base my analysis on a longer time frame on daily charts, and see where we're likely to go. What's most likely. And at the moment, Bitcoin looks like it is most likely to go down, but because it's doing something different, there is a chance that it won't, and there's a chance that it could break out from here. But anyway, that's all I'm rambling today. Sorry about this, guys. I've had a long day at work. I've been doing a lot of things, a lot of driving around today, seeing clients and that. So I'm a bit spent, really. I've spent most of the day in the car. Right, so let's have a look at Atom then, you say, shall we? Let's have a look at Atom. So Atom with, how old is this chart? Let's have a look on the Tether, because I prefer to look at Tether at the moment than I do with anything else. So actually it looks pretty good. It looks very good, in fact. Yeah, it looks really good. So one of those few alts that looks like it could be doing some decent moves, in fact. Let's get a bit of a scope of what's going on from here. So this from there to there is a massive move, 71%, almost 72%. Let's have a look at it on here. Yeah, it would be hard for me to say if these moves have played out completely, but judging from the chart, just from my first view of it, I think we're going to consolidate a little bit. So long as we stay above this price action here of $3.90, then we're probably going to have continuation. I would wait to see how we play this one out, given the fact that it's clearly subject to Bitcoin dumping. But the pump that it's had as a result of that bottoming there, and again, this is a coin that hasn't bottomed. When we look at one, okay, so one had like a low of only 2 weeks ago. We had a low all the way back down here in September, and we've not revisited that low since. So this looks bullish to me, and it's allowed the moving averages to face up for quite a while in the face of a bearish Bitcoin. So it's done pretty well for itself. And now it looks as though we are about to, if we can hold up above this level, above the $4 level, we'll call it, it looks like we're going to get a golden cross on the daily on the Tether chart, and I think we've already got one, haven't we? Yeah, we've already got one here on the Satoshis, so it actually looks pretty bullish, actually. But it's wanting to consolidate. We've got 4 days now of red candles with big wicks on the top, so that does show that it wants to come back down again. So we'll wait and see how far this can go down before we decide to buy it back. But it does look quite good. I'd wait to see, like I say, we'll wait to see how this one plays out in the face of Bitcoin. If Bitcoin wants to come back down again significantly, back into the 6,000s or lower, I think we're going to have a significant pullback on this. It is going to be, and it's shown that it's subject to those pullbacks of Bitcoin. But the chart in itself, if it wasn't for Bitcoin, if Bitcoin decided to stay completely still, have a very small trading range above 7,000, we'd have decent continuation with this one. But right now, it looks like it wants to do this golden cross, and that would probably do some really decent uptrends on it. So look at the volume on this. Volume's, it's not high, is it? It's not exactly massive, but it's good enough to create this chart. We'll have to wait. Like I say, we're pulling back now after these big moves, because these moves have been big. It might be worth waiting to see if we break down beneath the 200 exponential, which is just around $3.93. We'll see if we can pick some up. But yeah, no, thanks for bringing that to my attention. I'll keep that on my watch list. It looks pretty good. Like I say, when we look at that in comparison to one, what do we see? We see you know, it does. There's no comparison, is there? There's no comparison. Atom is definitely a lot healthier. To even, you know, to the untrained eye, you will look at this and go, that is doing very well for itself. Obviously, it's crashed massively this year, but it's doing better than most alts. Clearly, on the chart alone, it's doing very well there. Right, let's have a look then, shall we? What else are we going to have a peep at? What do I do as a day job? At the moment, well, it's basically, you're probably going to hate me for this. A social worker, all right? I'm a social worker. I used to be a psychiatric nurse. I'm also a social worker. I decided to just completely go head on into social work now, just because the hours are better. So that's me. I'm a social worker. So yeah, hopefully you're not going to fall out with me, because social workers aren't very popular. I appreciate that. Right. Let's have a look at Neo. I've never ever looked at Neo in my entire life, so let's have a look at that now, shall we? And get rid of some of these extra tabs now. Get rid of one. We'll say goodbye to one. Say goodbye to Atom. Right then. So now it's my my live stream has only got 19 people in it since I told you I was doing social work, so maybe I should keep that a secret from now on. Right, so let's look. It's basically Bitcoin, isn't it? When you look at this, it's exactly Bitcoin's chart, isn't it? There's no difference to it. It's exactly Bitcoin. Am I looking at Bitcoin here? It's Bitcoin. You're looking at a Bitcoin chart. It's Bitcoin. There's nothing more to it. It's just Bitcoin. We're looking at a Bitcoin chart. It's exactly the same. It's absolutely 100% exactly the same as Bitcoin. What's going on here? Yeah, I mean, what can I say? It's Bitcoin. It's got the same. It's the same. It's absolutely exactly the same as Bitcoin. There's nothing more to it. It's gonna do what Bitcoin does. It's got a death cross here, like Bitcoin has. It's well, it's technically it's stronger than Bitcoin, but it's still got the same setup as Bitcoin. So whatever I say Bitcoin is gonna do, Neo's gonna do. We're not bullish, we're not bearish. We've got the Ichicloud cross here, just like on Bitcoin. We've got the death cross here, just like on Bitcoin. We've got the pump here, which is what all coins have had. They all had this level here where it bottomed. It wasn't a double bottom though, like what Bitcoin had, but it is a bottom all the same. And we're pumping as a result of it, which is another reason, to be honest with you, why I'm a little bit suspicious over Bitcoin going bullish right now, is because the entire market has bounced exactly the same, and it looks to me like nothing more than an actual bounce for the entire market from hitting this level. So Neo is Bitcoin for all intents and purposes, and it is going to do what Bitcoin does. That's all I can say. There's nothing else to it. It's exactly it's like a fuzzy shadow of Bitcoin. So I'm sorry I couldn't be more help than that with that one, I'm afraid. Ravencoin, let's have a look at that then, shall we? Let's have a peep at Ravencoin. What's the ticker for Ravencoin? Is it RVN? Yeah, I think it is, isn't it? Right, so this looks a lot like the other low cap coins like Harmony, to be honest with you. It doesn't look bullish, obviously. Big pump in massive dump, similar to Matic. Let's measure this one up, measure this out actually from top. Yeah, it's like a mini Matic, isn't it? It's basically a mini Matic. We're moving down here, ever so subtly and slowly. So I would expect to see a bit of a dump. In fact, it's going to be, yeah, we're beneath the 0 point here for the MACD as well. Bit of bullish divergence on it, so it might decide to go up. I mean, look how indecisive these daily candles have been. They're pretty much like little spinners, so it doesn't really know what it wants to do. But as we are slowly making lower highs, it's probably going to break down on this one rather than up. So I wouldn't say this is anything worth buying at the moment. We've got moving averages all sloping down ever so slightly, but there's a big gap between the green, the 50 and the 200 exponential. So everything about it as a chart in its own right is bearish. So I wouldn't say it's anything other than bearish, unfortunately. We could be in for a giant wick similar to this one, and then maybe a nice bounce when and if Bitcoin decides to break down. If Bitcoin breaks down, Raven's going to break down. And then yeah, you might find your bounce, and it might be a decent bounce, but again, it's subject to Bitcoin, and the chart in itself isn't bullish. The chart is ever so slightly bearish. What you want to see basically in any coin is you want to see it at least above, because all coins are going to have charts similar to this, right? They're all going to be coming out of a big move, because most coins pumped really well this year. So because they've all pumped massively and they're all coming down, most coins are beneath the green 50 exponential, and what we want to see is the first step of things going bullish is to see ourselves getting above that green 50 EMA and staying above there. That will start to signal, I guess, as you could call it, an accumulation ready for a pump. Any pump like this that happens sort of out of the blue is likely to have a big pullback. I don't know what caused this. This could have been some news, or I don't know. I've got no idea what caused that. Looks like it could have been in the same. Is that the same sort of time that Matic did its thing? So yeah, I think it was, wasn't it? Yeah, so Matic was doing its thing. So this is the same time that Matic was doing its thing. So maybe it was benefiting by association with those small cap coins, and kind of doing what Matic was doing. And then when you see this big dump, it's like a mini Matic, isn't it? It's exactly what Matic did. So yeah, I mean, we're slowly trickling back down again. Let's look at revisiting these lows here of these wicks down at this level, or perhaps this level, when it's sat between, or what would that be, 300 and 292. Let's have a look on the tether pairing. Yeah, I would expect to see lower levels around these levels. I guess where the bottom of the Bollinger Band is right now. Is at 2.1 cent. Will be tested again eventually, but if Bitcoin breaks down, we'll be breaking down with it, coming back down to this level here, below that 1.9 cent or 1.93, or maybe even lower, because if Bitcoin isn't as bullish as we think it is, and does come down to these levels, it's going to kill off alts faster than it kills itself. It's going to show, with a dominance of almost 71%, other alts are going to suffer harder than Bitcoin, and these low cap coins are going to suffer quite hard. So that's all I've got to say on that one, I'm afraid. Nothing wrong with being a social worker. Yeah, tell me about it. No, there isn't. People get it all wrong, don't they? Social workers are there to try and help people, but people don't see it that way. I'd be off if I was a traffic warden. Well, that is a bloody hard job, mate. Honestly, who wants to be a traffic warden? It's a job's a job, innit? You're doing your thing. It's got, it either takes a certain type of person to do a job like that, but it's got to be done. So it has to be done. At the end of the day, if you parked your car in double yellows, you can shout at the traffic warden all you like. It's your problem. Right, what else are we going to play? A seller then, shall we? So I imagine, I've not looked at seller, but I pretty much can imagine what it's going to look like. It's going to look like Harmony 1. It's going to look like a mini Matic. But I could be wrong. Let's have a look. Ooh, flat as a pancake. Yeah, when did we bottom out on this one? So this is better than Harmony 1, only because it bottomed out at this level here. Did it bottom out there? It's so hard to say, isn't it? Because it's been so flat for so long. It bottomed out there at 39 sats. What did it do on Tether? And on Tether, oh, it's ever so slightly just a little bit better than Harmony 1, only because it previously bottomed out there and it's touched itself again. So I would say that it is doing what Harmony 1 wants to do, which is pretty much nothing. Again, bearish chart, bearish, but not massively. It's going down so low. When you get sats down at these low levels like this, each tick down is, what would that be? Every tick down is going to be like a 2% tick here or more from this level, with every single tick. So to get a tick like that is going to be, it's going to get to a point where similar to what happened with BitTorrent token, where the sats get drained out of it so much that it's very difficult for it to go down much lower on the sats. And then what you'll probably see is you'll see Binance take off the Bitcoin's pairing, and you'll only be left with Tether, because the sats are so ridiculously low that it doesn't attract anybody to buy it, because the ticks up and down will end up being things like 5 or 10 or 12 or 15%. So it could end up being really nasty for a coin like this, and I bet you that's what will happen. If it goes down much lower, if it goes down as low as, let's say maybe about 30 sats, I bet you Binance will take off the Bitcoin pairing, because it will show how weak it's become, and it will only leave it with Tether. And you'll end up with something like BitTorrent token, where it went down so low that people just weren't prepared to be buying it, because every tick down or up was basically 12.5% or more, which is enticing in a bull market, but in a bear market it's not very enticing at all. You don't want to buy something which, with one single tick you could lose the equivalent of 10 or more percent. So I think that's what's likely to start to happen with this guy, and probably Harmony 1. I don't know what the sats are on Harmony, but there won't be much bigger than this. And that's what we'll probably start to see. So I don't like the look of it, to be honest with you, just to put it out there. I don't like the look of it at all. But there's worse coins out there. I mean, it's just because it's so low in value now that it's going to be difficult for it to gain in value. And with a chart that looks bearish like this, it's there's nothing about it which would suggest that enormous sums of money will start pouring into it. I think Binance needs to start taking away some of those Bitcoin pairings, because it really does show how weak it really is. Right, so NEO, we've looked at NEO, and my summary of NEO is that NEO is basically doing exactly what Bitcoin does. The chart is like a carbon copy of Bitcoin. It's so similar that there's no point really looking at it and giving any other opinion on it other than the opinion I'd give on Bitcoin, which you can, I'm sure excuse me, I don't know when you tuned in, but my opinion on Bitcoin is that it's 50-50 with maybe a 55% chance of going down rather than up. But like I say, it's more or less 50-50 at this range with this setup. But even if it is 50-50, if it goes bullish, it's going to be probably rejected from this level here, same as we were rejected from yesterday. And if it does manage to break into this area, it will be rejected from here. And this would be a good area for people to be taking shorts from, so it'll end up probably being brought back down again. There's no big, massive bull market at the moment. There's the big moves that Bitcoin saw at the beginning of the year are probably not going to be seen again until later next year. There's several months away before we start to see anything like this, and in all fairness, we don't really want to see things like this, because what happens when this happens is that this happens as a result. This is like a parabolic move, similar to what happened at the end of 2018 17 into 18. This is a similar kind of move. A parabolic move needs to cool off, and we had a parabolic move and we're cooling off. So it's not healthy for that sort of thing to happen. Cardano, yeah, that would be an interesting one. I've not looked at that in a long time either. Let's have a look at that. That's more or less forgotten about for me, to be honest with you. So looking at it, first of all, we'll look at it we'll look at it on its tether pairing. Give it a chance. So new lows. So that is, to me, not a good sign that we've only just had new lows. So it's a very weak alt. There's nothing strong about this one, and because it's weak and because it's only just bottomed for the first time, would that be 2 weeks ago? Similar to a lot of alts actually. I would probably say it's not a good coin to be looking to buy. There's nothing powerful about this chart. It's just down. That's all it is down. Let's have a look at it against Bitcoin. Whoops. So against Bitcoin, it's a tiny bit better, but it's still very weak. It doesn't have the setup that Bitcoin has. It just has a bit of a bearish move to it. Now there was a point here. If we look at it, it was above the green 50 exponential, and it stayed above there until this little drop here, which was a shame, because this is the sort of thing you want to see. To consider buying a coin. It's just unfortunate that it broke down. So maybe if we get above there again, there is a chance that we could go bullish. If the market's bullish, if Bitcoin's bullish, and we stay above this green 50, then yeah, that would be a decent area to buy it from. But at the moment we're down, but beneath it again, we're probably going to get rejected from it again. So it's we'll have to have a look at it in maybe another 2 weeks to see where we are in 2 weeks. Yeah. Anyway, it's a pretty low turnout for this live stream, unfortunately. So unless you've got any more coins for me to look at, you've got any further questions or anything you want to know, I think I might just call it a day, go make a cup of tea, to be honest with you. But I do always appreciate you guys joining me. I know my channel's not very big, so the people who do come on here, I do appreciate it very, very much. I mean, I like to look at these charts anyway for my own purposes, so it's kind of like having a load of mates around ready to look at it together. A load of geeky mates with the same geeky kind of hobby, which is making money off crypto. So thanks for tuning in. Unless you've got anything else for me to look at, we'll call it a day. Alright, well, I will take that as a no. Well, thanks everybody, and yeah, I hope you have a nice evening. Take it easy, and maybe we'll do this again tomorrow. Thanks for watching.